how did you first get involved with gold? Is it educational background or business background, or?
Well, I mean, I started to look at gold in the 1970s and the 1980s when we had the first run for gold, you know, when it went up all the way to $840 per ounce. Mm-hmm. And at that time, Volcker was in charge, and he basically what he did, he was able to manage the whole problem. Mm-hmm. And he kicked everything back, he raised interest rates, and he avoided the hyperinflationary depression. Today, it has come back with a revenge. And as interest rates today cannot be raised anymore, Mr. Volcker has no more arrows. Mm. And that's the problem we have today, and that's the risk, and that's why I'm almost convinced that, you know, sooner or later, and it's probably going to be before the end of 2012, that we're going to run into some kind of serious problem.
It's interesting that you point out that Mr. Volcker was raising interest rates and Mr. Bernanke has been lowering interest rates. You know, it seems like that disconnect is not going to end up with a happy solution. You know, the dollar was survived and continued to be accepted as currency because Mr. Volcker cut back on inflation.
Correct.
But Mr. Bernanke, with these low interest rates, I think are lessening the demand for the dollar because people can't earn enough interest to offset the risks of holding dollars, and that actually probably is going to signal problems for the dollar and maybe even the U.S. economy ahead. You seem to agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no way you can raise interest rate either in the United States or in Europe. You forget about it. You know, the first guy who raises interest rate, he's just going to, it's suicidal.
Yeah.
It's the end of the economy.
It's also sort of an arithmetic problem or mathematical problem in the sense that the U.S. government now has $14 trillion of direct debt. You raise interest rates 1%, that's $140 billion. That's about, you know, additional 5% additional budget deficit, or excuse me, 5% of the revenue of the government, about 10% additional budget deficit. So it becomes mathematic in that you're in a vicious circle, much like it was in Weimar Germany in the 1920s, where they just continued issuing more debt and more currency and more debt and more currency, and ultimately led to a flight from the currency and ultimately the hyperinflation.
Yeah, and I think that the problem or the risk of the guys who could, you know, pull the plug out of is China. Because the United States, they have been living by the means of China. Mm.
China, it's interesting because they've, according to the latest statistics, stopped increasing the amount of U.S. government paper that they're holding. They've also given a couple of other signs, you know, periodically they announced that they've been accumulating gold. I think this last announcement 2 years ago was like the third announcement they've made in over a 10-year period of time. You know, I travel to South Africa quite a bit, and every time I'm down there, there are legions of Chinese officials throughout southern Africa, you know, gobbling up resources, spending dollars, getting into tangible assets, getting out of financial assets. So that's the winning strategy that I think individuals should be following as well.
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
I mean, unfortunately, I don't think that China can get involved into the gold market and silver market overnight, because if they would, you know, that market would just go bizarre. Yeah. You know, we'll go to the moon.
I have this view that China's going to continue, you know, playing more or less by the rules as the rules were established by the U.S. until the system collapses, and then they're just going to go their own way with their own wealth.
They're going to live around. They're going to follow the rules, and they're going to try to accumulate as much assets as they can.
Building a financial empire globally?
Oh yeah. Yeah, they're not going to. I mean, it would be stupid for them to collapse the whole system. Yeah. And they can. If they pull out the plug, the system is going to collapse. So they're not going to do it.
So they'll let it collapse, and then they'll...
It's probably, you know, that's why I say that it's probably going to happen somewhere where nobody expects it. Like, for instance, I mean, I'm just calling Japan, but it could as well be somewhere else. Mm-hmm. It's very hard to, you know, I think even if people have a crystal ball, you would not be able to tell it.